The wind started screaming before the rain even touched the ground. Weather alerts blared from every phone in the house, warning of the strongest hurricane our town had seen in 30 years. My father moved quickly, hammering plywood over the windows. My mother rushed through the kitchen, stuffing flashlights, batteries, and canned food into a plastic bin. The air smelled like fear, but none of it was for me. Lily needs the downstairs bedroom, Mom said firmly, her voice tight with urgency. She gets anxious in storms. Lily stood behind her, pale and trembling dramatically. I can't handle loud thunder. It makes my chest hurt. I swallowed. Where am I supposed to stay? Dad didn't even pause. Garage. It's safer than upstairs. Safer. The garage had a thin metal door and one narrow window that rattled whenever a truck drove past. I stared at him, waiting for the part where he smiled and said he was joking. He never did. The first drops of rain hit like thrown pebbles. The sky turned an unnatural shade of green. I carried a blanket and pillow into the garage, trying to convince myself this wasn't what it felt like. It wasn't rejection. It was practicality. At least, that's what I told myself. Inside the house, Lily cried louder as the wind picked up. I could hear Mom soothing her through the door that connected the garage to the kitchen. Nothing will happen to you, sweetheart. We're right here. The words stung more than the cold air. The storm hit just after dark. The garage door shook violently. The metal groaned under pressure. Rain forced its way through the edges, pooling around my sneakers. Lightning flashed through the small window, illuminating the space in harsh white bursts. Then the power went out. Everything went black. The wind roared like something alive, something furious. The garage door buckled inward with a deafening crash. I screamed and ran to the inner door, grabbing the handle. It didn't move. I twisted harder, locked. They had locked it. I pounded against it, my fist stinging. Mom, Dad. The storm swallowed my voice. Water sprayed through the opening as the garage door bent halfway off its track. I stumbled back, heart racing, realizing no one was coming. Not because they couldn't hear me, but because they had chosen not to. I climbed into the back seat of Dad's truck and pulled a tarp over myself as the hurricane raged around me. The world outside felt like it was breaking apart, but something inside me broke first. And as the wind howled through the cracks of the garage, I understood a truth I had tried to ignore my entire life. When it came down to choosing between us, I would always be the one left outside. I didn't sleep that night. The hurricane screamed for hours, shaking the truck beneath me like a toy. Rain lashed through the broken garage door, soaking the tarp and my clothes. Every crack of thunder felt like it split the sky in half. I kept my hands pressed over my ears, trying to shrink into myself. But what hurt more than the storm was the silence from inside the house. No one came, no one checked. When the wind finally died down near dawn, the world felt strangely quiet. The rain softened into a drizzle. My body ached from the cold and from sitting curled up for hours. I pushed open the truck door carefully and stepped into ankle-deep water. The garage looked like a war zone, tools scattered, boxes floating. The metal door hung crooked, bent inward. The inside door opened slowly. Mom stood there, her hair messy, eyes tired. She blinked at me like she'd just remembered something minor. "Oh," she said, "you're okay. Not relief, not panic. Just mild surprise." Behind her, Lily appeared wrapped in 2 blankets. "We were terrified," she said dramatically. The windows upstairs almost cracked. I stared at them, water dripping from my sleeves. I was locked out. I said quietly. Dad walked into view, jaw tight. "We locked the door so pressure wouldn't pull it open." "So you knew it was locked," I replied. He didn't answer. Mom's expression shifted slightly, defensive now. "You're strong. We knew you could handle it." There it was again. Strong, the word they used whenever they needed to excuse hurting me. Lily moved past me carefully, avoiding the puddles. "I didn't sleep at all," she sighed. "I thought the roof would fly off. I almost laughed instead. Something inside me went still. I realized they truly believed what they were saying. In their minds, I wasn't abandoned. I was simply the capable one. The one who didn't need comfort. The one who would survive, and maybe that's what made it worse. Because survival isn't the same as love. The rest of the day passed in cleanup. Fallen branches covered the yard. A neighbor's fence had collapsed. The town looked bruised and battered. Inside the house, Mom made hot tea for Lily. She rubbed her back and whispered reassurances. No one offered me dry clothes. No one asked if I was scared. That was the moment something quiet and permanent shifted inside me. I stopped waiting, stopped hoping, stopped believing that one day they would see me the way they saw her. If I was going to be strong, then I would be strong for myself, not for them, because the storm outside had passed. But the one inside our house had just begun. After the hurricane, something in me went silent, not angry, not dramatic, just finished. I stopped trying to compete with Lily. For attention, I was never going to win. When she complained, Mom listened. When I achieved something, it was expected. When Lily failed, she was comforted. When I succeeded, it was shrugged off. You're independent, Dad would say. You don't need us hovering. It sounded like praise. It felt like dismissal, so I built my life quietly. I got a part-time job after school and saved every dollar. I studied late into the night, filling out scholarship applications at the kitchen table while Lily watched TV with Mom. I stopped telling them about my grades. I stopped inviting them to events. They didn't notice. When the acceptance letter arrived from a university 3 states away, with a full scholarship, I held it in my hands for a long time before showing them. Mom, read it twice, that's far. It's a good opportunity, I said. Dad nodded slowly. Well, if it's paid for, that makes sense. That was it. No celebration, no pride, no hug. Lily barely looked up from her phone. I could never live that far from home, she said casually. I wanted to say, I have been far from home my entire life. Instead, I packed. The day I left, Mom cried, but it felt more like fear of change than fear of losing me. Dad shook my hand awkwardly before pulling me into a brief, stiff hug. Take care of yourself, he said. I had been taking care of myself for years. College wasn't easy. I worked nights at a diner and studied between shifts. I learned how to stretch a dollar, how to network, how to build something from nothing. I made mistakes. I failed, I tried again, and for the first time in my life, when I succeeded, it was because of me. No comparisons, no favoritism, no shadow. After graduation, I founded a small tech startup with 2 classmates. It started in a cramped apartment with borrowed laptops and instant noodles for dinner. It grew slowly. Then, unexpectedly fast, investors came, articles were written, interviews followed. Through all of it, my parents called occasionally. Mostly updates about Lily. She's figuring things out. She's going through a tough time. She just needs support. Lily never left home. I never went back. Until one evening, years later, when my phone rang and Mom's voice sounded smaller than I'd ever heard it. Your father is sick, she said quietly. For the first time in a long time, the past stirred, not because I needed them, but because I needed to see whether they had ever truly seen me, and whether the girl they once locked outside still existed inside the woman I had become. The house felt smaller when I returned. The paint was fading. The fence leaned slightly to one side. Even the air inside seemed thinner, heavier with unspoken things. Dad looked fragile in the hospital bed they had placed in the living room. His once commanding voice had softened into something careful. When he saw me, his eyes lingered longer than usual. You did well, he said quietly one afternoon. It wasn't elaborate, but it was the first time he had ever acknowledged my success without attaching it to obligation. Lily hovered constantly, restless and frustrated. She had never built a life outside these walls, and now the walls felt like they were closing in. Mom looked exhausted, older than I remembered. I handled medical bills without comment, arranged appointments, spoke to doctors. It was practical, necessary. No one said thank you. Dad passed away on a quiet morning while rain tapped gently against the windows. The funeral blurred by in handshakes and murmured condolences. Lily clung to Mom dramatically. I stood steady, composed. A week later, we gathered in a lawyer's office for the will reading. Lily sat confidently, fingers intertwined with Mom's. The house, the savings, everything. It was understood. She had stayed. I had left. The lawyer adjusted his glasses and began. To my daughter, Lily, I leave the family home and my personal belongings. Lily exhaled in relief. Then he continued. To my daughter, Emma, I leave the majority of my estate, including investment accounts and business shares." The room went still. Mom's hand tightened around Lily's. "That can't be right," she whispered. The lawyer's voice remained calm. "The will was updated 6 months ago." 6 months? I hadn't known. Lily's face drained of color. "You manipulated him," she snapped under her breath. I didn't respond, because the truth was simpler than that. Dad had watched. He had seen who showed up quietly, who handled responsibility without complaint, who built something from nothing. Mom's hands trembled in her lap. For the first time, she looked at me not as the strong one, not as the independent one, but as the daughter she had underestimated. "I didn't know," she said softly. "I believe you." I replied, and I did. The revenge wasn't loud. It wasn't cruel. It was clarity. They had once locked me out during a storm because they believed I would survive. They were right. What they hadn't realized was that surviving would teach me how to thrive without them. As we walked out of the lawyer's office, rain began to fall again. This time, I didn't feel cold, and for the first time in my life, no door stood closed in front of me.